Um, Welcome back for my second instalment. um, Thanks for joining me. If you're new, hi. My name's Anna. If you want to know a bit about my story, if you just want to watch some of the videos that have come before this one, they're a little bit long and drawn out, but they give you a bit more insight into my life and where I am with my personal journey. Today I kind of wanted to touch on another topic that's kind of important to me. So there's several topics I'm going to go through. Not today, over the next few weeks. I'm going to do a video on them, and then what I'm going to do is, as previously stated, is release all my mental health videos and my mental health journey that I made. I'm going to do them all at the same time just so you can see it straight, like from beginning to end. And then afterwards, after that, I think I'm going to start maybe doing more videos based on tips and hints and things that we're doing in our life and my progression with the things and the topics I'm discussing. So at the moment it's more just a bit of a history, just going through some history. And the topic I wanted to discuss today for me was minimalism. So last week was finances, my history of finances, and I was kind of thinking about what I wanted to touch on this week, and I thought a really good place to start would be kind of minimalism and, you know, my history with it and how I kind of discovered it. So bear with me, I've got a bit of a cold at the moment. My little one's giving me a cold, so if you see me sipping, I'm sipping on like honey and lemon tea. But yeah, so I'm just going to dive right in, I think would be the best. So I was probably introduced to minimalism in 2019, and it might just be the circles that I'm in, but it wasn't ever something that I've ever heard of or ever come across. And what happened was, in April of 2019, I discovered I was pregnant. And the same weekend I discovered I was pregnant, my husband and I bought a puppy, like you do. So I had to take a few days off my work to look after and introduce our puppy into our home and stuff, and to get her settled in. And I was skimming through Netflix, and I love documentaries. So I was looking through the documentaries and I came across one called Minimalism. And I watched it, and it's the first time I'd ever heard of minimalism, what it was, the concept of it as a lifestyle, or this idea of minimalizing your life. It's an amazing documentary. I recommend anyone go check it out. It's like 7 or 8 years old now. It's by oh god, it's Ryan Nicodemus and Joshua Field Milburn. I really hope I've got the names right. Do you know, I was literally watching a Minimum podcast the other day there, so I shouldn't actually forget their names. But they're basically two guys who discovered minimalism. They've set up the Minimalists, and it was about them going around the country kind of talking to people about it. It's directed by Matt Diavella, who's a really big YouTuber. Again, I never heard of Matt Diavella either. I got into some of his YouTube videos actually off the back of it. And it's actually what first even introduced me to YouTube. Up until 2019, I wasn't big into YouTube. I didn't sit and watch films for hours on YouTube or anything like that. So yeah, I watched this documentary and it was really, really fascinating. So, like I say, they went on like a tour around America, just discussing like their story basically. And they were also talking to people that they, you know, they kind of, they followed, you know, people they would say was like, well, the godfathers of minimalism, and people that they admired. And I had never given it much thought, to be honest, this idea of downsizing or downsizing my life. But I thought, well, you know what, I'm pregnant. I was having a bit of a first discovery pregnant. Oh my goodness, and my whole world was about to change. And I kind of thought, do you know what, maybe decluttering a little bit wouldn't hurt the house. I knew I was going to have to buy a load of baby stuff anyway. And yeah, so I decided to start decluttering. I can be a bit of an all or nothing person, so you know, I am very much like, if I decide to declutter a room, that room's getting decluttered, like everything is going. Um, so I was trying, because I can be like that, I didn't want to just gung ho straight into it and then a few months later be really stressed out or anything like that. So I just did it room by room, and I just, I didn't realize how much of a hoarder I was. It turns out I attach sentimentality to items. That's one of my things. Like, I had a lot of trinkets and ornaments and little bits and bobs that I would, they had sentimental reasons that they were there. Um, and actually, it was a really, really great way of discovering stuff like that. And I just went around room by room, and I kind of just tried to see it as a big cleaning up session, like a spring clean. So that's what I did. And it was really, really good. And I really enjoyed it. And I got quite a lot out of it. I also noticed as well that off the back of it, things like cleaning became so much easier. I really, like, I'm not a big cleaner. I'm not, like, I don't really like it. I go by 15-minute rules. Basically, ideally, in all of my rooms at any given time, I want to be able to have it tidy in 15 minutes. Not deep cleaned or anything like that, but ideally, if someone was to ring me up and be like, I'm going to be at yours in 10-15 minutes for a visit, I want to be able to start at one side of the room and get to the other side of the room and have the room tidy in 15 minutes and presentable. So that kind of stemmed from that a little bit, because it allowed me to do that. It became a whole lot easier to tidy up when you had less. It allowed, obviously, for other new important things to come in, like baby products and baby items that we needed to have down the stairs. And a byproduct as well was that my head felt a little bit clearer. And I liked that. And actually, from being someone who always had spaces filled with trinkets and objects, it kind of became the opposite. Like, empty spaces started to arise, and I found that after a few months, and certainly later in my pregnancy, and it could have been nesting, but if those spaces got filled up again, unless they were being filled up with something of actual, what I would see as worth, or something I was like, that makes a change, that's really good, I actually kind of felt a little bit uncomfortable with them being there. Now, because of, I think, the journey that I've been going on and all that, I would say actually it makes me a little anxious, like unneeded or unwarranted clutter. And so yeah, and then with my first child coming in, and COVID as well, lockdown, I did a really big clear out at the beginning of COVID, like a lot of people. I think at one point in our living room we had like 15 bags for charities. I've never seen my husband so uncomfortable before. And he's a bit of a hoarder, so he was like, these bags give me anxiety. So I did a massive clear out, kind of like a lot of people, at the beginning of lockdown. And that was really good. And also as well, being a new parent, suddenly we were inundated with a lot of toys, clothes, baby items, things we had never had, but things that we needed. And having the space to not only have them, but also as well organising those things. Being like, having minimalism in the back of my mind was really, really good. My husband and I take on a more of a Montessori parenting approach, and that's something I'll probably go into in a later video. Oh, excuse me. And one of the things about that is having, obviously, children's toys out, but just the way you place them and the idea of rotating toys has really, like, I think, really, really helped. And then that, alongside this idea of kind of keeping everything a bit more minimalist in the house, it's really good for streamlining. It makes the toys that we do have so much easier to access, to play with, My little baby loves when toys get rotated. He's never bored with toys. So it's not like we've got this constant stream of toys coming in the house. He generally has a lot of toys anyway from gifts that he's given all the time. And also, it means that if things do break or get damaged, we have a bit more control over putting them out. So yeah, that's kind of how I go. I'm not an extreme minimalist. If you was to see my house right now, it's a bit messy. You would probably say it's a bit messy, and it's got a load of things in it. My husband, by no extent, is a minimalist. Our shelves, for example, my husband loves board games. He loves D&D. So we have multiple board games in our house. He has a lot of figurines and stuff like that from D&D play. Lots of books from D&D play. I really like books, so while I have cut out a lot of books that I don't feel that I need anymore or want anymore, the ones that I do feel give me value, or the ones that I like to read, I will keep them, you know. And I like to buy a hardcover book, you know, as opposed to just listening on Audible or reading on Kindle. So no, that's kind of where we're at. I did find at the beginning of this year, with going back to work, after my child, after my mat leave, my first mat leave, stuff kind of shifted. And without realising it, you know, I had always kind of been listening to the Minimalist podcast. I would dip in and out of it, as well as other people that they kind of recommended. But I kind of just stopped, and now being able to look back at it, obviously my mental health was deteriorating, and I wasn't in a good place. But one of the first things I noticed when everything kind of came to a head was how cluttered everything in my house was. And it suddenly kind of like hit me again. I was like, everywhere's cluttered. I was like, I need to tidy and clear out the house. And so I hadn't realised that probably for about 6 to 8 months, it wasn't, you don't need to keep on top of it all the time, the getting rid of things and that, but being aware of your surroundings and being aware what's in your personal space is really important. And I think that's important mentally, because that's the space that you relax. It's a space where you want to feel your calmest. It's a space that you want to have a clear head and a happy head. And if you don't have that, then you're already on a back burner. And you know, you might not find that through minimalism. Like, minimalism has helped me with that. It helps me feel in a spot mentally where I'm like, right, I feel a bit clearer, you know. But you might be someone who does have all the trinkets as well, and you know, you love them on your shelves and on your walls. Or, you know, I love photographs, so I have tons of photographs everywhere, and I get joy and I like them. And I know that to someone else, they're just seen as dust collectors. But for me, that gives me a lot of peace of mind, especially in my own space. So it's different for everyone, but being aware of the space around you and the space that you spend most of your time, especially now that a lot of people are working from home, is really important. So it's one of the first things I did when everything kind of hit with my mental health, and I was like, I need to get out the hole that I'm in. How can I do that? I knew that daily exercise, which will be another video that I'll put in, like walks or stretching, would help. But I knew that I kind of needed to go back to my roots a little bit. And one of them was like how much I enjoyed having a more mainstream, simplistic, minimalistic lifestyle. And so, yeah, I started really simple. I cleaned out a cupboard, you know. I think it was my cutlery drawer. I went through my cutlery drawer and just started from there. And gradually over the last few months, I've went through my living room, under our stairs. I'm now working on upstairs, and I'm just the amount of rubbish you seem to accumulate, like in the space of a few months, is just ridiculous. And I'm not talking about like items, I'm talking about like random bits of paper that you've maybe scrawled on something at some point. And I'm trying to presently at present be more present with being minimalistic and simplifying. And that goes and outstretches not just I'm sorry, that outstretches not just to the stuff that's in my home and the items that I bring into it, but also as well new items that I will potentially bring into it. So things now like I've now become a bit more aware again of what I'm buying, what I'm purchasing, and actually what I'm spending my money on, which again was something I had been doing, but and minimalism had kind of made me more aware of that, along with, as you'll see from my previous post, along with like discovering Dave Ramsey, who I actually discovered through one of the minimalist books that I read. And I realised that like a domino effect, like once my mental health had kind of slipped, my physical health slipped, my body, my mind, like a domino, it just goes out, ricochets out. So I realised I was flitting money away for no reason. I couldn't even tell you where £200 or £300 would be going a month, and that's money that we didn't really have to spend, and so now I'm becoming more aware again, just naturally, of, right, where is my money going? Do I really need to be buying that product? What am I getting from it? And that was really good too, because that was something that needed to be reined in, and something that will continue to be with us expecting another baby. So that's kind of where I'm at with that now. My husband, as I say, he's not a minimalist at all. I don't know the best way. He's not a hoarder, but my husband does like to keep a hold of things. He likes things like wires. So we have boxes of wires in our house that I'm like, get rid of the wires. And he's like, I might need this wire one day. So he's not really a minimalist in that sense at all. He does like the minimalist. He likes kind of what they stand for, and the idea of the sense of simplifying and bringing things into your home that have value. But he kind of thinks once they're in the home, they have value. And whereas I am very much like, do we really need to spend like this money on this board game? We're only going to play it maybe 3 or 4 times a year. He's like, I like the board game. That gives me joy. Let's get the board game. So that's another reason why, if you were to come into my home, you'd probably say at the moment it's kind of messy, and it is like, maybe to some minimalists, it's very like, it's definitely not a minimalist home. And that's because I fundamentally don't live with a minimalist, And again, that's all about communication, which I touched on last time with my last video. And going forward as well, I'll discuss probably ways we overcome things like that when I maybe want to get rid of things and he doesn't, as in the sense of now I can feel quite anxious with a lot of stuff being in a place. He can actually feel quite anxious with really sparse places and sparse spaces. So again, it's kind of opposites. So that's things that we communicate about and we work on, and that's quite interesting too. And they're things that, like, hints and tips on that, that I'll probably discuss later down the line with it. But I certainly think if you're maybe struggling with mental health issues, or you are feeling a bit overwhelmed, one thing to look at is maybe minimalism. Like I said, you don't have to adopt it. It's not about that, but just that some of the ideas behind it, just helping you to simplify so that later down the line, you can kind of have a bit more options, pick and choose things, and you're not like so chained to maybe your items and stuff like that. It's really good, and it can help in the process clear your head a bit. And really, that's the aim of it. You just want to kind of clear out the cobwebs, clear your head, and just be able to breathe a bit, which is the most important thing. Okay.